Good morning and welcome to the Public Service Commission of South Carolina. It is Monday, August 28th at 10 a.m. and we are here today in a proceeding involving docket number 2023-9-E, which pertains to Dominion Energy South Carolina Incorporated's 2023 Integrated Resource Plan, also known as an IRP. Let's take a roll call of commissioners. Present in the hearing room, we have Commissioner Justin Williams, Vice Chair Powers, Commissioner Thomas, Commissioner Carolee Williams, Commissioner Caston, and Chair Belser. And with us virtually, we have Commissioner Irvin. Before we get into the actual trial with witnesses from the parties, we have a number of customer witnesses who have signed up to present testimony this morning. So with the parties' consent, I will forego the appearances of the parties at this point as we delve into the customer testimony, because we're kind of on a timeline. And we will get through we're scheduled to go with customer testimony until about noon, and depending on where we are at that time, we will kind of look at the remainder of the day for the parties. So parties, you may remain seated. You may move to more comfortable chairs. If some of you need to leave the room, that's entirely permissible as well for counsel that's here. I'm going to recognize our staff counsel, Ms. Sandra Moser, to read the docket and provide some instructions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the Commission. Good morning. We would like to thank you all for appearing today at this public hearing. This proceeding before the Commission is in docket number 2023-9-E, which concerns Dominion Energy South Carolina, Inc.'s 2023 Integrated Resource Plan, or IRP. Before we begin, we do have a few preliminary matters to go over. The Commission is mandated by law to follow certain procedures. Only those persons who have signed up will be able to speak today. The Commission won't hear from you unless you are signed up to testify. If you are signed up to speak, you are testifying as a witness about facts known to you related to Dominion Energy. You will be placed under oath, and this means that you are telling everyone that what you are going to say is the truth known to you. Your statements must be under oath in order to be evidence in this case and to be considered by commissioners. After you are called on to speak and come to the microphone, please give your name, the name of the street that you live on, and the town in which you reside. You do not need to provide your specific house number. Then you may proceed with whatever you wish to tell the Commission through your testimony. Please speak clearly so that everyone can hear you, including the court reporter. After you're done speaking, please remain at the podium for any clarifying questions that the parties or the commissioners might have for you. Everyone who has signed up to speak will be given the same time limit of 3 minutes. This is the first scheduled public hearing in this docket, and the next public hearing will be this evening at 5:30 p.m. Please note that if you provided testimony during one hearing, you cannot provide testimony a second time or at another hearing. The trial in this matter will begin today, Monday, August 28th, 2023. And during the trial, the commissioners will hear the positions, the testimony, and evidence from Dominion, the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff, and all other parties intervening in this matter regarding Dominion's IRP. This hearing is generally a hearing in which various technical experts will testify. It will continue until all witnesses and final statements or motions have been presented by all of the parties. The hearing is expected to continue at least 2 or 3 days and will be available in real time virtually. Importantly, if you are signed up to speak, you are a witness testifying in this matter. The 7 commissioners before you are what is called a quasi-judicial body in South Carolina, and this means that they are judges in this case. They are subject to the rules of judicial conduct and the laws passed by our General Assembly. And just like if you're a witness called in a trial at the county courthouse, you cannot ask questions of the judges and expect him or her to answer, and the same applies here. So, regardless of whether a commissioner wants to answer a question or clarify any matter of law, the commissioner simply cannot answer questions. They are bound by the same judicial rules as any judge. This is the public's opportunity to be heard and to say what you all want to the commission to know concerning Dominion's IRP. If you have any information that you wish to provide as evidence, please hand it to the clerk and court reporter when you complete your testimony. You will need to remove or redact any personal identifying information that you do not wish to be shared. Finally, the attorneys and representatives who are here today will be able to provide you with information on how to contact Dominion Energy or the Office of Regulatory Staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moser. Any exceptions or additions from any of the parties? Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Thomas?
I have a question. So are the public witnesses required to be Dominion customers? I don't believe I heard that mentioned.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have our first witness on the line? Okay. Is it Mr. Gilbert? Mr. Bachman, please go ahead.
Mr. Gilbert, can you hear me? Mr. Gilbert, can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Gilbert?
I'm coming. You hear me?
You can hear me, Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and your town, but not your house number, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
Yes, my name is Steve Gilbert. I live at 99 Oyster Point Row in Charleston, and I am a Dominion customer.
Thank you, sir. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. You will now have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to start by thanking the PSC for opening up this process to public comments. I was appalled that Dominion's proposed integrated resource plan has almost no inclusion of clean energy sources except some possible solar in 2026 and includes further delays in closing coal plants. Instead, it locks in a future composed primarily of new gas plants that pollute surrounding communities and contribute to the climate crisis. From a ratepayer viewpoint, I must point out that new gas plant bills are expensive, as is buying natural gas, and customer bills are most likely to rise. Recently, the ability to raise bills for the price of natural gas has been condoned numerous times by the PSC, leaving Dominion no incentive to consider cleaner and cheaper energy sources. The expense of the plants and the required pipelines that usually present their own harsh environmental impacts will ensure that these polluting projects will be operating for many decades. Customer bills have already risen 18% over a relatively short time due to the price of natural gas. Approving Dominion's current plan is neglecting ratepayers for many years to come. Natural gas prices are unstable and, as mentioned earlier, resulted in the PSC allowing Dominion's multiple requests for rate increases. Continued bill increases can be so burdensome that many ratepayers may no longer afford to use air conditioning and heating to meet basic human needs in summer and winter when climate change can present brutal temperatures. Methane that exudes from these new plants, although dissipating quicker from the atmosphere than carbon dioxide, has 80 times the warming impact of carbon dioxide. Clean energy options reduce cost and risk for ratepayers, reduce pollution, promote energy independence, and South Carolina's growing clean energy economy. It is incumbent on the PSC to strongly consider the public benefits of reducing harmful greenhouse gases like methane. Knowing what we know now about the climate change crisis and continuing to opt for new fossil fuel generation instead of clean energy replacement is no longer a morally correct choice. I encourage the PSC to send Dominion back to the drawing board with the expectation to expand clean energy alternatives, roll back the new timetable for removing coal plants, and take a path that will help avoid constantly repeating the same poor planning that leaves ratepayers picking up higher and higher tabs. Thank you for this opportunity to comment on Dominion's proposed IRP.
Mr. Gilbert, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your comments. Please hold and let me see if there are any questions regarding your comments. Any questions from any party? Commissioners, any questions for the witness? Mr. Gilbert, again, thank you. We appreciate you taking your time to share your views with us.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Very much.
Our next witness is Ann Tyler. Ann Tyler, are you in attendance? Thank you, Ms. Tyler. If you would please come down to the front table here. I'm sorry. I am. Yes, ma'am. You got it. Ms. Tyler, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, ma'am. Is your microphone on there? If you would please state your name, the name of your street and your town, but not your full address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy customer, please.
My name is Ann Tyler, and I live on Mises Road in Beaufort, South Carolina, full-time resident and Dominion ratepayer.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
Okay, thank you. I spent my 40-year career working with corporate clients, including dozens of gas and electric utilities, helping them to lever the intersection of technology and business strategy. And I can assure you that technology changes everything. We also know that solar cells, batteries, and electronics are technologies, not fossil fuels. A simple fact that is rewriting the economics of electricity. Solar cells, batteries, and electronics are cheaper than any other source of energy and the most scalable at speed. Solar tech can scale from a handheld lantern all the way up to a utility scale power plant. It locally powers our single homes or entire neighborhoods, schools, commercial properties, industry, and farms. This is the power of technology. In a key example of this, the Brattle Group recently modeled how a utility could construct a virtual peaker plant using VPP technologies and distributed energy resources for only 5% of the cost to construct that same gas-powered peaker unit of the same capacity. This is the power of technology. The Nonprofit Institute for Local Self-Reliance gives South Carolina a D rating on our policies to advance community solar adoption in our state. Programs and technologies that reduce energy costs in a range of 10 to 30%. This is the power of technology. Finally, South Carolina ranks 34th out of 50 states in deploying solar technologies in our schools. Like a low-income school district in Arkansas that saves so much money from deploying solar technology and energy management systems, in their district they were able to give their teachers a $15,000 pay increase, dramatically reducing, in addition, their high teacher turnover rate. This is the power of technology. Today, there is no longer any technical or economic obstacle to the swift transition of our energy system to one that is cleaner, cheaper, and faster to deploy, and we do not need any miracles. Nor do we need more natural gas facilities to meet our energy needs or to close the coal plants as the IRP proposes. The only obstacle is more than a century of addiction to fossil fuels and their lobbying dollars, along with the artificial constraints of an outdated monopoly model that only incents cost recovery and guaranteed profits, not innovation And knowing this, it would be a dereliction of moral, intellectual, and fiduciary duty for the PSC not to reject this IRP. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tyler. Just a moment, please. Parties, any questions for this witness? Commissioners, Commissioner Carolee Williams.
Thank you, Chair Belzer, and thank you, Ms. Tyler, for being here. You mentioned a Brattle report study. Do you
Yes.
have the name? Do you know who it was done for?
Yes, it was the Brattle Group, which was the same organization, that helped the Joint Committee on Electric Wholesale Market Reform in South Carolina this year. The report was commissioned by Google, and it was, or Oracle. I've drawn a blank. I believe it was Google. Yes, it was Google. And it was made public and publicly presented, and I'll be happy to provide a link to that report and that presentation. I can provide a link to that. Yeah.
Chair Belzer, how would that be handled?
Ms. Tyler, you had some written comments. Is there a link in your comments?
There is not.
Okay. There would have to be
It is publicly available, and a simple Google search can find it. But if it's possible for me to send
we can
a
only
link on,
consider information that is in the record of this case. We can't
Okay.
go out and independently
Okay.
research issues. So if you'd like,
well, I assure you it exists, and you obviously the state has a relationship with the Brattle Group.
Could Ms. Tyler put the URL link on her notes and submit them?
as a late file exhibit.
Chair Belzer, the company would object to that. Mrs. Tyler did not prepare the report. She doesn't work for the Brattle Group, and that would be inappropriate.
I'm going to overrule the objection, and we will hold a late file exhibit. It'll be hearing exhibit number 1 for, can you just submit
Sure.
an email
Absolutely.
with the,
If someone could provide, shall I use the email address that I used to communicate my intent to testify today? Or is there a better place for me to send it?
can you wait a few minutes and we'll find somebody to,
Absolutely.
Well-
I'll be here all day.
you can send it to where you communicated, and we'll get it on the DMS and sent to the parties. The same email address you used earlier.
Okay, gotcha.
And Ms. Tyler, one other question. You
Yes.
talked about an entity that evaluated the amount of solar in each state, and South Carolina was 34th. I did
No,
not.
that is related to, thank you for that. That is related to this, the 34th out of 50 states in deploying solar in schools.
Oh, in schools.
In schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Programs to deploy solar technology and energy management in schools.
Okay. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
No further questions,
Thank
but
you.
appreciate your being here.
I appreciate your time.
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry, Vice Chair Powers. I'm sorry, I didn't see a light.
Okay.
my fault.
Another question?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Maybe I was trying to type what you were saying more than listening to what you were saying. You talked about a specific building that had been done that was 100% solar, or were you talking about just the plan that Google's involved in?
I'm sorry. Could you start your question again? I didn't hear the beginning of it.
Did you were you talking about, or did you mention a specific building or construction that had been done, or were you just talking about what the report says?
With respect to the Brattle Group report and virtual power plants,
Yeah.
yes, it was a model of a utility that would serve approximately 1.7 million customers. And the concept is the exploitation of virtual power plant technology and distributed energy resources, all the way to EV batteries, et cetera, that could construct and supplant the need to build a natural gas-fired.
Okay, so it was just
Facility.
a model, not
That's
a...
correct. That is correct.
Okay, thank
Now,
you.
I do know, and I don't have the numbers, but I do know that virtual power plant technology pilots are being run all over the country now.
Okay,
There are at least, I think, 13 states that are doing them.
okay. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Well, is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Chair Belzer.
Go
I
ahead.
have one quick question.
Of course.
I asked you about the wrong study in terms of the rating. We have a D rating on solar options.
D rating on community solar, preparedness to deploy community solar,
Okay.
and that's from the Institute of Local Self-Reliance, a nonprofit organization, ilsr.org.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Also publicly produced reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tyler. Appreciate you being here. Mr. Bachman?
Our next witness is Meredith Commons Russo. Meredith Commons Russo, can you hear me? Good morning, Ms. Russo. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and your town, but not your full address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
I am a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer. My name is Meredith Russo. I live on Pelletier Drive in Beaufort.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to give testimony in this matter because it's extremely critical to me and to many people who may not have the opportunity to testify that South Carolina and particularly our utility provider make moves for future improvements in energy sourcing that brings us into the 21st century in the cleanest possible way. We know that climate change has become a critical issue and is affecting our oceans, our shorelines, our entire continent, and our planet in a most negative way. And the best way to affect climate change and make positive changes is to reduce emissions. If we continue to rely on fossil fuel, that is from, energy sourced from coal-fired power plants and natural gas, and any other fossil fuel sources, then we will not be doing the most we can to reduce emissions. And this is the most important move we can make to have a positive effect on climate change and to save ourselves. So it is my firm opinion and desire that Dominion Energy will, instead of relying predominantly on fossil fuels, move into reliance on renewable energy sources. And doing this will have the extra benefit of providing new jobs for residents of South Carolina, and will make our air more healthy, our waterways more healthy. And I think it's the best move, and I would really sincerely hope that Dominion will consider this aspect before they make final decisions about the sources for energy going forward. I know that there are controversies over renewables, but I think in the long run there is no arguing the fact that they will result in a reduction of emissions, and so I'm really appreciate the opportunity to make that opinion known, and hope that you will give serious consideration to it. Also want to make you aware that I am a member of the Citizens Climate League, and so thank you again. I think that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Ms. Russo. Could you wait just a minute and let me see if there are any questions for you? Any questions from parties? Commissioners? Ms. Russo, thank you for your time this morning and your testimony. We certainly appreciate your comments, and they are part of the record. I hope you have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bachman?
Our next witness is Mark Gould. Mark Gould, can you hear me?
This is Mark Gould speaking.
Mr. Gould, if you'll wait one moment, please.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I I swear.
Thank you, sir. If you will please state your name, the name of your street and town, but not your full address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer.
My name is Mark Gould. I live at 25 Catfiddle Street in Charleston, 29403. I have 2 Dominion meters and net metering with my solar.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
All right. Page 37 shows zero solar energy production in the winter. That's page 37 of the Integrated Management Plan. My rooftop system produces 50% as much in December as compared with the peak month of May. In theory, at South Carolina's latitude, December production should be 75% of annual average. So I question why page 37 shows zero solar production in winter. Next point, carbon pricing. Page 52 shows the 2035 carbon price ranging from $16 to $22 per ton. Consensus on future carbon pricing in a carbon tax or cap and trade regime will be closer to $50 a ton in 2035. Impact of this higher carbon price is difficult to calculate because the report is opaque regarding actual gas prices and gas consumption numbers. That's a general complaint about this report, is the model is opaque and you can't really get inside to see what assumptions are being used. Next point, impact on residential utility bills for 2035. Monthly bills are as follows on page 138. Reference billed with reference market scenario, $158 a month. Reference billed with 85% carbon reduction, $175 a month. Reference billed with high fuel market conditions, $170 a month. This shows clearly that the difference between the market scenario and the 85% carbon reduction scenario have very small impacts on residential bills, and just the noise of uncertainty regarding fuel costs puts them pretty much within the same range of uncertainty. Next point, offshore wind is a mature technology that could provide many times over all South Carolina's energy needs. Page 52 lists capital cost for offshore wind as $4,328 per kilowatt as compared to small modular reactor at $12,259 kilowatts. I acknowledge that a small modular reactor is a base load rather than intermittent load, but it's not a mature technology. So why is there no offshore wind in Dominion's mix? Last point. Are you getting all this?
Yes, sir. The court reporter is getting everything down.
Benefit, are you still there? Benefit of demand size management is very modest. 5,175 megawatt peak versus 5,239 megawatt peak without DSM. Should the plan consider distributed solar, i.e. on flat roof commercial buildings and parking canopies, with west-facing PVs and distributed storage? This would shave off summer peak loads very effectively without having to build additional facilities. Otherwise, it's a great report. I just wish it were less opaque and easier to read, and I thank you for taking my testimony.
Mr. Gould, thank you for your testimony. Hold just a second, and let me see if there are any questions for you. Parties?
Okay.
Commissioners?
Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Powers?
Thank you. Mr. Gould, your comment about offshore is something that is looked at and can be very beneficial. One thing that just popped in my mind, though, when you said that, this is a tourism state. And
this is a what?
This is a state that is based on tourism. As far as our coast, and I represent a good portion of it,
well,
I'm concerned that
Mr. Gould, please allow the commissioner to ask his question before you respond.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm concerned that there would probably be a lot of political objection as well as the ability to harness that power to get it back on the ground where it can be used. And I know I feel like that is an issue that probably needs a lot of study, but I'm glad you did bring it up because it is mentioned in the IRP and it is something that's being considered by a lot of parties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Gould? Mr. Gould, thank you for your testimony and your time this morning. We certainly appreciate your comments.
And thank you very much for the opportunity. I think it's a great report, and I loved reading it. All right.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Our next witness is Belvin Olasov. Belvin Olasov, if you'd please step forward. Perfect. Mr. Olasov, do you solemnly affirm that the
Mr.
testimony or...
Bachman?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Please raise your right hand and let him administer the oath, please.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and your town, but not your house number, and whether or not you are a Dominion, South Carolina customer?
Yes, Belvin Olasov. I live on 428 Race Street in Charleston, South Carolina, and I am a Dominion ratepayer.
Thank you, sir. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
Thank you. It seems to me that Dominion is abdicating its duty to the public and serves as a monopoly utility. There are two major problems I want to speak to in the IRP: lack of funding for energy efficiency and weatherization projects, and a foolhardy investment in gas and coal. I have seen firsthand the need for weatherization projects in the Low Country. There are thousands and thousands of households that are dealing with sky-high energy bills because their homes are in various states of disrepair. And it's in our best interest to go into those homes and fix the windows, the door sealants, the roofing, all to reduce energy demand. We've been doing fewer than 100 weatherization projects a year in the Charleston Tri-County area. If we were keeping up with demand, I believe we'd be doing 1,000. There is such a gulf right now between the demand for weatherization projects and what is being funded and offered by Dominion. I believe that really should be addressed to reduce consumer-side energy demand. And on the proposed new gas investments and the expansion of the coal plant lifetime. I understand that you are the Public Service Commission and not the Climate Change Commission. But the world we live in is increasingly a world in reaction to the climate change problem. We have to read the tea leaves. The federal government is going to make it expensive to keep all of this fossil fuel infrastructure going. The coal plants, keeping those open extra 2 years is going to be extra expensive because coal plants are being disincentivized because of human health damages and climate damages. They're a dirty fuel. To ignore that is to be cavalier with taxpayer money. Gas production creates methane, which has more than 80 times the warming power of carbon dioxide over the first 20 years after it reaches the atmosphere. It is an immediately potent greenhouse gas. If we want to reduce climate impacts and acceleration, we need to not invest in new gas plants. This past summer was the hottest summer ever recorded in human history. That is to say, climate change is here. It's not just a future problem now. And as we keep experiencing climate change and not just anticipating it, the knives are going to be out for the fuel most directly fueling immediate climate change. And Dominion already has a lot of gas in its energy portfolio. What we don't need right now is more. In 1978, the federal government banned consumer use of lead paint. If you invested in a lead paint factory in 1977, you were not being a good steward of funds. Dominion Energy's IRP calls for a major new natural gas power plant. And I have to say, in 2023, that is a lot like investing in a lead paint factory. And I just wanted to echo, I have a little time, echo the calls for community solar. There is so much potential in terms of communities, neighborhoods, having direct access to power production. Never in human history have communities been able to set up a coal plant in their backyard. But we have the potential right now for community solar to really expand. And I know in the Low Country there's a lot of demand for this and not a lot of opportunity for this provided by Dominion Energy. And I would love to see that expanded. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olsov. Parties, questions for this witness? Commissioners? Commissioner Carolee Williams?
Thank you. Good to see you, Mr. Olisoff. I share your interest in energy efficiency, but I wondered as you were talking what your thoughts are about whose role it is to change out windows and to add insulation, and whether there's a partnership you have in mind or whether you think it's the energy company's responsibility.
So as I understand it, there's sort of a necessary pipeline. There has to be training, job training, to sort of set up the stage for weatherization projects. You need people who are competent in actually executing those, and right now there's not enough of those. And then you need the people to actually go in and do those projects. There are nonprofits that exist. When I say I've seen firsthand the need for weatherization projects, I was doing volunteering with a local group called the Sustainability Institute. I was going door to door and talking to folks who need weatherization done. And just around the neighborhoods, it was immediately apparent how much possibility there was. So I think public-private partnerships are a great vehicle for weatherization, but what just needs to happen is funding. And funding that isn't just year to year, but funding that says, okay, like here's our 5-year plan, because that allows for the sort of job training pipeline to execution that is necessary if you want to see real weatherization progress.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Olisoff, thank you for being here today and your testimony. Your time and your testimony is greatly appreciated.
Thank you for holding this.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Cassandra Fralix, appearing virtually. Cassandra Fralix, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir. I affirm that.
Thank you. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and your town, but not your full address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
Yes, sir. My name is Cassandra Fralix. I live on Corley Mill Road in Lexington. I am a Dominion customer.
Thank you, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
First, let me say thank you so much for allowing me to express my opinion on this very, very important topic. I want to express, first off, my opposition to the plans to keep the coal plants online and to Dominion's request to invest in new natural gas infrastructure. While I understand the challenges and transitioning our energy system, maybe not all the details, but in general, I believe these plans will ultimately harm consumers and the environment. I think all of us are quite aware of all the climate issues that have been occurring. I found out recently that Dominion receives incentives to continue fossil fuel production. The Environmental and Energy Study Institute estimates that South Carolina spent over $304 million on fossil fuel subsidies in 2015, including tax policy, direct spending, and federal allocations. South Carolina provides at least hundreds of millions in annual subsidies to the fossil fuel industry through tax breaks, direct outlays, infrastructure, and favorable utility regulations. This perpetuates the dependence on fossil fuels and hinders renewable energy growth. Rather than building new gas plants, I ask that the Public Service Commission require Dominion to accelerate the transition to renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and energy storage. And the reasons why are natural gas prices are volatile and unpredictable. We've already seen bills increase nearly 18% for customers since May 22. Due to this May 2022, due to the spiking gas prices, while utility profits have remained strong, new gas plants will lock customers into this price volatility for decades. Another reason is constructing new gas plants is expensive, costing hundreds of millions of dollars, and these costs often get passed on to the ratepayer. Renewable energy and storage technologies have plummeted in price and can now be more cost-effective. Proposed EPA regulations on fossil fuel pollution will make operating coal and gas plants more risky and expensive. Preemptively transitioning away from these energy sources will shield customers from future costs. Renewable sources like solar and wind buffer customers from fuel price hikes, providing us a stable and predictable energy supply. And they don't pollute our air and water like fossil fuels. So I urge you to reject the plans for the new gas infrastructure and for keeping coal plants online. Let's invest in affordable clean energy and efficiency programs that will benefit all residents. South Carolinians deserve an energy system that prioritizes consumer protection, sustainability, and resilience. I also know that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has stated very clearly that human activity is the cause of global warming. That is, human activity such as burning fossil fuels and changing how we use the land is the leading cause of climate change. Our planet is now warming at an unprecedented rate, and this is because of burning fossil fuels.
Ms. Fralix, I need for you to wrap up. Your time has expired, please.
We can see the results are climate change as the sea levels rise, heat waves and droughts are more severe. There are crop failures and water shortages, and many species are facing extinction. We are on track for catastrophic temperature rise by the end of the century, which would have devastating consequences for the planet and for humanity. Dominion's current operating capacity is less than 6% wind and solar. The lack of investment in safe, renewable energy comes at a heavy price. Thank you so much for this consideration. This is a very serious matter, and a lot is in your hands.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Fralix. Please hold the line. Parties, any questions for this witness? Commissioners? Ms. Fralix, thank you for your testimony and your time this morning. We certainly appreciate your comments. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to express
Yes,
my
ma'am.
opinions and the opinions of the Intergovernmental Panel.
I hope you have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope you do too.
Our
Mr.
next
Don-
witness is Timothy Joy. Timothy Joy appearing virtually. Mr. Joy, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Joy. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and town, but not your full address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
Yeah, I am Tim Joy, Ladies Island, Beaufort ratepayer, 8H Marsh Harbor Drive, also chapter leader of Citizens Climate Lobby, but I am speaking only for myself today as a Dominion ratepayer.
Thank you, sir. You will have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody, and I thank you, commissioners and all, for your service. I am sorry to say that I urge you to reject the Dominion IRP. In its current form, we have a plan that puts our toe in a renewable future while our body sits firmly on fossil fuels. I'm happy to pay toward a plan that is the best we can do for South Carolina. And I'll try to explain what that would look like to me. It would look like the most affordable power for all, with predictable costs, free of international commodities markets influenced by friends, so-called friends, and true enemies. Perhaps solar power with storage. It would look like the cleanest and therefore healthiest possible power for ourselves and the planet. The most secure, independent power. Power that will do the most for our auto and battery industries while we're building employment in our own burgeoning renewable energy businesses, while we can take full advantage of federal incentives available to us. Somebody will use them if we don't. All this through a plan that will deploy solar power with storage along with other renewables as rapidly as we can. Let's move South Carolina Electric Power into a bright 21st century future. Let's do our best. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your decision.
Thank you, Mr. Joy. Please hold the line for a second. Let me see if there are any questions for you. Commissioners, any questions for the witness? Mr. Joy, thank you for your comments and testimony today and for your time. We appreciate you appearing before us, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Our next witness is Gary Smith. Gary Smith appearing virtually. Mr. Smith, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and your town, but not your full address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
My name is Gary Smith. I live on Halsey Street in Charleston. And then, yes, I'm a Dominion customer.
Thank you, sir. You will have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
Yes, I'm just hoping that everyone in this decision-making process is keeping firmly and foremost their children in mind when they make this decision. It's clear we have all the information we need, what's happened across this country and this planet in the past, 5 years. It is just telling us everything we need to know. And so that brings us to the question of cost of making these conversions and making these hard decisions. But we now see clearly that the cost of not making them is going to be monumentally higher than making these transitions. So if we invest now and help as ratepayers pay for a new gas plant that'll be then with us for decades upon decades, and we extend the coal burning, the timeline of that even longer, which all this entails, Dominion's plans, then we as taxpayers are funding our own destruction. And I just think it's really time the Public Service Commission stands up for the public and for life and helps us, take every advantage of the money available in the IRA fund now to go gangbusters forward with the only thing that makes any sense in the face of all the data and destruction we're watching happening across this planet. So I really, really hope they make the strong and the wise decision here for us and our children.
Mr. Smith, thank you for your testimony. Hold just a second. Let me see if there are any questions for you. Commissioners? Mr. Smith, thank you for taking the time this morning to testify before the commission. We certainly appreciate your comments and wish you a good day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone on the commission for the time they're putting into this incredibly important work. Thank you.
Our next witness is Henry Gurr. Henry Gurr, appearing virtually. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. This is Henry Gurr speaking.
Thank you, sir. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and your town, but not your house number, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
My name is Henry Sater Gurr. I live at 4264 Vaucluse Road for about 43 years. I've been a South Carolina electric and gas customer since arriving in South Carolina in about 1968. I think I'm now giving my testimony.
You may begin your testimony now, sir. You will have 3 minutes from this moment. Please do stay on the line after you wrap up your testimony in case commissioners have questions. But yes, your testimony may begin now.
Do I need to say again what I already said?
No, sir. Mr. Gurr?
Yes.
You may begin your testimony. Yes, sir.
Okay, this is the testimony of Henry Sater Gurr. I'm 86 years old, and I am a graduate mechanical engineer degree, undergraduate, and have a PhD in experimental physics. I've long been concerned about the human consumption of fossil fuels, which create atmospheric carbon dioxide. It is clear to me that this carbon dioxide is causing a global warming already happening, and this will continue to get very severe, equaling a disaster. Global warming, clearly to me, will exasperate all other human problems and make them far worse. Therefore, I strongly urge that the South Carolina electric power companies move as fast as possible to stop using fossil fuels altogether. They should invest in alternative energy sources, such as, of course, water power, but far more possible and for our future is solar electrical generation. These can both be on individual consumer homes and contribute to the grid, and also could be on large collector farms. I hope South Carolina and their electric power companies will stop using fossil fuels and go as fast as possible to alternatives such as solar electricity power generation. This is the end of my testimony. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gurr, thank you for your testimony. Just a moment, please. Any questions for this witness? Parties?
Say again, please.
I'm trying to see if any of the parties or commissioners have any questions for you. Please hold just a second, please.
Now, start again. I can't hear you.
Any questions?
Say again, please.
Mr. Gurr, I was just trying to determine if any parties or commissioners have questions for you, and there appear to be none. So thank you for your...
I'm standing by for any questions.
There are none, and I'd like to thank you for your testimony this morning and wish you a good day. Thank you, sir.
Our next witness is Priscilla Preston. Priscilla Preston, also appearing virtually. Ms. Preston, can you hear me? Priscilla Preston, are you on the line? Priscilla Preston, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and your town, but not your house number, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
Okay, my name is Priscilla Preston. I live on South Hardin Street in Columbia, South Carolina, and I am a Dominion customer.
Thank you, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony, and you may begin your testimony now.
Okay, there are two concerns that I would like to talk about today. First of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. One is a request for more energy efficiency programs and ways individuals can reduce energy usage during peak usage periods. In other words, an expansion of all demand-side management programs. Although Dominion has several programs available, such as Thermwise Neighborhood Energy Efficiency Program, Home Energy Checkups, Home Energy Checkup Plus, Home Energy Report Programs, and Energy Saver Program, they have some limitations, and more is needed. The Thermwise program is for people who use gas, and of course, as many other people have already explained, the use of gas is one of the worst possible things for the climate crisis. So the goal should be to eliminate gas usage as much as possible, not to encourage, although it's good to use less of it, we certainly don't want to encourage the use of gas at this point in time. And I'm opposed, of course, to the new gas plant that's being proposed. The Home Energy Checkups program is a good program, and I would like to thank Dominion for that program, but more resources need to be put into the program, especially for customers who have higher than average utility bills. Customers need to know if their bills are higher than average. And that's another something that Dominion could do, is simply to notify people who are having difficulty paying their bills about the resources that are available. so again, some of the programs like the Home Energy Report program is no longer available for self-enroll. So clearly there are many things that Dominion is doing and could be doing more. The peak hour billing, such as the smart pricing plan, is no longer available for new enrollment. So that needs to be opened again. And I think that, again, very few people are probably aware of that program or of the Energy Saver Conservation Rate 6 program that rewards people who upgrade their homes to high efficiency standards. All of these things need to be publicized, especially to groups who are assisting people with their utility bills, like the faith groups with benevolence funds. I was thrilled to read on the Dominion website that Dominion has increased funding for customers for bill assistance, and they have expanded the program to include free home energy assessments and energy efficiency upgrades. So that is what we need more of. That's it doesn't involve any additional infrastructure, and it helps everyone. It helps the planet and individuals in the short term. So and in the long term. So that's the way to go. In summary, effective energy efficiency, peak rate billing, and assistance to those who are struggling to pay their bills is a way to reduce overall energy consumption and reduce the strain on the grid during peak periods. Effective demand-side management could not only lower energy bills for consumers, but also contribute significantly to environmental sustainability by reducing the need for additional power generation and associated emissions. Thank you so much for considering my comments today.
Ms. Preston, thank you for your comments, your testimony today. Just a moment. Let me determine if there are any questions for you, parties, commissioners. Again, Ms. Preston, thank you for your testimony. We certainly appreciate that and your time this morning, and wish you a good day. There are no questions for you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Our next witness is Pamela Greenlaw. Pamela Greenlaw, are you in attendance? Thank you, Ms. Greenlaw. If we could have you take your seat right here. And will you please raise your right hand? And do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and town, but not your house number, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
Thank you very much. My name is Pamela Greenlaw. I live on Ontario Drive in West Columbia. I am a Dominion ratepayer.
Thank you, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, thank you for having this hearing. This is highly necessary. I'm not only a customer, I am an investor. I'm a shareholder of Dominion. Please send Dominion Energy back to the drawing board. This IRP has fewer strengths than weaknesses. The price of energy is going up due to many complex demands, R&D, energy, infrastructure, volatile markets, and we've covered all that. But we have to keep our eye on the ball. And that's to produce energy which reduces greenhouse gas emissions, both carbon and methane, on a clearly defined schedule without further hurting lower to middle income families. Part of the rate increases we have to remember are due to Dominion's deal to have customers unjustly pay for the failed nuclear power plants they neither wanted nor needed, and we don't need gas plants that will follow the same pattern. There are three major concerns. Dominion wants to overbuild gas plants. They do want to avoid significant and aggressive energy efficiency, and they regularly charge customers to compensate for demand-side management programs. So they give with one hand and take with the other. As a Dominion investor, Dominion stock isn't high as it once was. I'm not making money, but I'm not dropping either. I'm not dropping off. This is the norm for many investments in the energy industry, and we understand this ebb and flow of markets. But let me move on, if I can get my computer to behave. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. The Dominion shareholders a year ago passed a resolution which called for the company to issue a report describing how it is responding to the risk of stranded assets of planned natural gas based infrastructure and assets as the global response to climate change intensifies. To date, Dominion has not issued any such report, which indicates a deliberate lack of study on their part and thus makes evident they are not willing to consider undue economic and climate risks inherent in expanding gas resources. They do expect us to pay shareholders and ratepayers to bear all risky, unaccounted for costs. I'm going to have to go a little bit faster if you bear with me. Please note that there's not this problem in Virginia, the home state of Dominion. In Virginia, you have to note that what's missing from their IRP, let me find my spot. Missing from South Carolina's IRP and present in the Virginia Electric IRP are innovations and resources which could and should be employed here. Is that my timer?
But please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I will go much more quickly.
Finish that thought, please.
Okay. There is an organization or an initiative. I'm sorry. I apologize. It always works when you want it to, right? Or not when you want it to. Okay. I apologize. Okay, here it is. There is a regional greenhouse gas initiative, a market-based agreement among 11 different states in the United States to reduce carbon emissions while boosting renewables and energy efficiency. The states in the program agreed with state-tailored system through which energy utilities work to reduce carbon emissions through, listen to this, a cap and invest market, not cap and trade. It has been yielding real, measurable carbon reductions as well as income for each member state for the state to use as it desires. Dominion and its subsidiaries have accomplished much more for ratepayers and the public in Virginia, in large part because Virginia joined the RGGI. It's a win-win-win initiative. I recommend the ORS Energy Office, South Carolina Office of Resilience, study this initiative and report on their findings. I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I will submit this in writing. Thank you very much.
Ms. Greenlaw, thank you for your testimony. I'm over here. Sorry. It's kind of hard to pull us out.
Thank you, Ms. Pilser.
Thank you. Let me see if there are any questions for you. Any questions from parties? Commissioners, Vice Chair Powers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Greenlaw, and thank you. You said there were 11 states that were in this initiative, or
yes.
in the rest of the states besides Virginia in the South?
At this time, they are not. But when they first began, Pennsylvania was not part of it either, even though it's not Southern. I'm going to bring this in because the state is now going through studying whether or not they want to join. As you know, Pennsylvania is pretty, it's an oil state. I grew up in oil country when I was growing up. Our refinery, the oil refinery was right next door to my elementary school. So we had to scrape the carbon particles off the snow on the top to eat snow underneath.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Greenlaw, thank you for your testimony and your appearance this morning. We appreciate you taking your time and delivering your testimony to us.
Thank you very much.
Our next witness is Betsy Newman. Betsy Newman appearing virtually. Ms. Newman, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, Ms. Newman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, ma'am. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and town, but not your home address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
My name is Betsy Newman, or sometimes Elizabeth Newman, and I live on Westwood Avenue in Columbia, South Carolina, and I am a Dominion customer.
Thank you, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
My testimony will be short. I just want to reiterate that we live in a time of climate crisis, and I think we all feel that this summer with the terrible fires that have been going on around the world and over 90-degree temperature here in Columbia for over a month, every day over 90 degrees. And I can remember when it was unusual to have 2 or 3 weeks over 90 degrees. So I'm just saying that to say that we have got to take this climate crisis seriously, and this is not the time to be creating more fossil fuel powered energy plants. I really encourage Dominion to think more creatively, more progressively about what we can do in South Carolina to stop putting fossil fuels, carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and to instead use some of we have a lot of land here in South Carolina where we can build solar farms. We have the ocean where we can build wind farms. We have beautiful rivers where we can have hydropower and thermal power. And so I'm just pleading with you as a citizen of South Carolina and of the world to please do not build more fossil fuel powered plants. Thank you.
Ms. Newman, thank you for your testimony. Please hold and let me see if there are any questions for you. Parties? Commissioners? I see no questions, Ms. Newman. We appreciate your time and your testimony this morning, and thank you for your appearance and wish you a good day. Thank you, ma'am.
Well, thank you for holding the hearing. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Our next witness is Caroline Frady. Caroline Frady, are you in attendance? Thank you, ma'am. If you'll come to this front table, please. Yes, perfect. If you'll raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and town, but not your full address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
Sure. My name is Caroline Frady. I live on 23, Ashton Street in Charleston, South Carolina. I am a Dominion ratepayer.
Thank you, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes to begin your testimony. You may begin now.
All right. I am here, yes, as a Dominion customer, but more so to protest Dominion's pollute and profit business model that has predominantly gone unchallenged by governing bodies, regulatory agencies, and the public at large. Dominion claims that their resource build plan takes a middle-of-the-road approach to closing and replacing their coal-firing plants, Watery and Williams. A middle-of-the-road approach is quite the euphemism, much like the term natural gas, for the destruction of land and the negligence to shift to legitimately clean alternatives. Natural gas is a misnomer that suggests alignment with sustainability goals. However, there is nothing natural about wrenching open the earth and injecting it with chemicals. Sorry. Many coal to natural gas comparisons consider only the end-use combustions, factoring in emissions from a power plant or house, leaving out total greenhouse gas life cycle emissions created by extracting, shipping, and processing gas. Methane leakages parallel coal emissions specifically through the gas supply chain. Burning methane is a public health hazard. Fracked gas releases PM 2.5 emissions which have been proven to implicate and contribute to severe heart and respiratory problems. Failing to acknowledge methane for the harmful and dangerous greenhouse gas that it is negligence, and promoting that fracked gas in any other way is misinformation. Fracked gas is not the solution to the so-called reliability gap between renewables and non-renewables. I'm having a difficult time understanding why non-renewable resources can ever even fall under the definition of reliable. Failure of the gas-fired power has driven extreme cold weather events for the past, or there has been failure of gas-fired plants, 5 separate large grid failures in the last 11 years in the US. Climate change induced extreme weather is the key driver of summer and winter grid emergencies. Extreme weather storms that used to be considered once in a generation are now happening once a year or every other year. The real solutions for reliability are localized resource diversity, and microgrids like community solar programs. Dominion's failure to seriously embrace solar solutions is the real reliability gap, risks missing out on the economic benefits of renewables, and ultimately leads to stranded assets as the global energy trends shift to clean alternatives. Fracked gas, pipeline construction, and pipeline leaks are destructive and devastating. I am not just here as a Dominion utility bill payer. I am here on behalf of habitats, animals, and plants because extracting leads to the unraveling of ecosystems. Including mass species degradation and extinction, fragmenting of wildlife, and crucial migration and reproduction patterns. Loss of biodiversity, increased vulnerability, decreased resiliency, and ultimately function failure. Building infrastructure to transport gas from wells to plants is a polluting process in and of itself that must be accounted for, and a huge burden on local freshwater sources as our groundwater tables continue to drop. In 2018, DHEC determined that Dominion...
I need for you to start wrapping up. Your time has expired.
Dominion... In 2018, DHEC found that they failed to control sediment runoff from a 55-mile pipeline. This ended up shutting down the local water system around the South Tiger River, where over 10,000 Dominion customers went without access to their water system for a few days. These accidents are the inevitable result of carelessly building pipelines. I would also like to end on that. Dominion's claims for moving towards sustainability are in the face of being the 7th largest company that has paid an environmental cost in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frady. Questions for this witness? Commissioners, any questions? Ms. Frady, thank you very much. You got a lot of information in a short amount of time, and we appreciate your testimony and your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next witness is Camilla Tetza. Camilla Tetza, are you on the line?
Yeah, speaking. I'm on speakerphone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Will you please provide the commission with your name, the name of your street and town, but not your house number, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
Camilla Tetza, Atlantic Avenue, Sullivan's Island. I'm a Dominion customer.
Thank you, ma'am. You'll have...
I've got a bit of a sore throat.
Understand. You will have 3 minutes for your testimony, and you may begin your testimony now.
Thank you. I'm a retired clinical psychologist, and I'm not going to testify. Sorry, this is going over this material. I realize how upsetting this whole issue is. I hope it doesn't interfere with me being able to speak to you. I'm a retired clinical psychologist. I'm sure you have other people here speaking on the mental health effects of climate fuel disaster, PTSD, anxiety, depression, suicide, and increase in aggressive behaviors. To make it really brief, it's even tougher on younger people. Adults, 68% of us have some climate anxiety, but young folks, nearly half of all young adults, feel stressed daily related to climate change in their daily lives. Young people are very upset, very frightened. 40% are hesitant to have children. I would like to direct all who are listening To the American Psychological Association, you can reach them on the internet. Just plug into your search American Psych Association, Psychological Association, and climate change, and you will get some hard research, some sound scientific findings on mental health effects. Now, part two, I'm going to talk about the island. I'm very lucky to be here. I'm only here because my grandmother built this house in 1937, and it's remained in the family. I was in grad school in Columbia when Hurricane Hugo hit. Invited my family to stay with me to avoid the storm, which they did. I visited the island 3.5 weeks after Hurricane Hugo, and it was an absolute disaster. The destruction was mind-blowing. I believe the hurricane actually killed my father, not outright, but in the year and a half that followed, where he was working very long and hard hours to repair our beach house. He also helped others here on the island in one of the churches here. I lived away from Charleston for much of my career, returned in 2008. In the past 2 years, I can actually see and feel climate change here on the island. Increased heat, strange precipitation patterns, deer less birds. I've seen hardly any butterflies. Compared to last year, hardly any butterflies this spring and summer. You may or may not know there's a bird banding station here, and birds stop here to rest or refuel when they are migrating. Development has wiped out so much of their natural habitat. If the habitat here were wiped out, we would lose them too. Gardening is much more difficult. Blooms wither and die very quickly despite watering. I had no success with tomatoes last year, and I have paused on trying vegetables at this point. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. It brings to mind what is happening to our farmers in the low country and what will happen in the low country and throughout South Carolina as climate change escalates. This island is a beautiful place. People flock to this beach every day to experience respite and beauty. And I don't know, you might be aware that there are health effects. Being in and around nature is good for our physical bodies as well as for our minds, our cognition, and our emotions. Climate-fueled storms and sea level rise will wipe us off the map. The destructive effects of methane from natural gas and carbon dioxide from coal plants are now extremely well known, well established. Anything that delays or blocks clean energy is criminal at this point. What are the solutions? Well, lawsuits, of course, but those take time. Right now, we have the power. This state has the power, the people have the power to direct all resources toward infrastructure for and production of clean energy so that we can survive, our economy can survive, and our children can survive.
Ms. Teza, I'm going to need for you to wrap up. We've exceeded. Okay.
That was it.
Okay. Would you hold and let me see if there are any questions for you?
Certainly.
Commissioner. Ms. Teza, there appear to be no questions. I'd like to thank you for your time and your testimony this morning. We certainly appreciate your participation and your comments, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you, ma'am.
Our next witness is Audrey Jones. Audrey Jones, are you in attendance? Excellent. Thank you. Please have a seat. Will you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. If you would please state your name, the name of your street and your town, but not your full address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer.
Thank you. My name is Audrey Jones. I live on Woodrow Street in Columbia, South Carolina, and I am a Dominion customer.
Thank you, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin now.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you to each of you for holding this very important session.
I am here to speak for the children who haven't yet been mentioned today, I don't think. For my child, for your children, your grandchildren, our future, who will, inherit the consequences of the important decision that you're faced with, such as this. I am a music teacher. I offer free lessons to the children of my community, which is mixed income, low income. And so I get to, to cherish these times with them, and they are over anxious about what's happening in the world. The climate, the issues that we're facing. They see their parents are struggling, their energy burdens. They are depending on us, on you all, to make decisions that will positively affect their future. I'm here. I can hear them now. I can feel their anxiousness, and I also want to share that disregarding the potential of solar and battery storage technologies is very short-sighted. These technologies have shown, rapid advancements and cost reductions over recent years, making them great options for transitioning away from fossil fuels. Failing to embrace the solar and storage solutions risks missing out on the economic benefits of renewable energy and could lead to stranded assets, as Mrs. Greenlaw mentioned earlier, as global energy trends continue to shift toward cleaner alternatives. I am optimistic. You have tools at your disposal to make a difference for our children and grandchildren. The negative consequences of this IRP affect me, affect you, affect all of those I know and communities I care about. I ask you, our beloved commissioners, to please strongly consider rejecting this IRP. Natural gas is a fossil fuel. We do not need a new fossil fuel facility in South Carolina. We have abundant sunshine. We have coastal wind energy potential. We need clean energy jobs. We need clean energy alternatives for our children, for South Carolinians. Please consider rejecting this. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Appreciate your testimony this morning. Let's see if there are any questions from any of the parties. Commissioner Justin Williams has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, ma'am, for being here today and everything you do for our children. I've listened to your testimony and the testimony of others, and I've heard the request that the commission reject Dominion's IRP, and I think you've testified to the same. And so I'm just curious as to what do you think the next step would be after that? Reject Dominion's IRP and then do what?
Gosh. Wow, that's a great question. I don't have a ready answer. It's complex. Obviously, it's a tapestry of solutions. And in my mind, I'm not a scientist. I'm not I don't hold a PhD in anything. And I don't clearly know the next steps. I think some of the things that have been echoed, or that would echo some of the suggestions that have been made before me, and hopefully in the testimony later this afternoon. But back to the drawing board feels like a place to start while expanding. I think one of the callers earlier, the demand side management, the programs available to communities that I live among, access to some of those resources to better help them.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have.
Commissioners, anything further? Ms. Jones, thank you for taking your time and coming, talking to us today. We appreciate you being here and your testimony.
Thank you, Ms. Belton.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Rowan Emerson. Rowan Emerson, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Thank you, sir. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Will you please provide the commission with your name, the name of your street and town, but not your home address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
Yes, my name is Rowan Emerson. I live on Ash Street in Charleston, South Carolina, and I am a Dominion ratepayer.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
All right, thank you. So again, my name is Rowan Emerson. I'm speaking in opposition of Dominion's current IRP. We have seen ratepayers pay an additional 18% just over the past year as a result of Dominion being reliant on natural gas, which has shown itself to be, especially volatile when considering inflation. It's unstable and explosive with international conflicts and price sensitive due to its scarcity factor, all of which leads to higher prices domestically, with ratepayers footing the bill. In South Carolina, a state which has a disproportionate number of people living at or below the poverty line, we must focus on solutions that will bring us into a future that is focused on creating social outcomes that are equitable and not based on the whims of a corporation that has shown itself to be avaricious. Dominion has been socializing its losses and privatizing its gains, which means it is a lose-lose for us ratepayers. And along those lines, while Dominion does include some renewable energy sources in their IRP, it is not nearly enough, especially considering how renewable energy is shown to be the cheapest form of energy, being both more stable price-wise and the least volatile in its operating costs compared to natural gas in the long run. Dominion's IRP continues to focus on fossil fuels, exacerbating the spiraling positive feedback loop, whereby consumers will have to spend more money on keeping their homes and businesses cool during hotter and more intense summer heat and warm during more intense winters, while they get to profit off it. So now it's a lose-lose-lose for ratepayers, and Dominion keeps winning with little to no skin in the game. The PSC is meant to approve plans that are, quote, the most reasonable and prudent means of meeting energy and capacity needs, while also considering consumer affordability and compliance with federal environmental regulations. Consumers should not need to constantly fear that the rates will spike in perpetuity. They should not need to fear that consuming energy will continue to exacerbate climate change, air pollution, and health and safety risks. As a Public Service Commission, I hope that you will choose to serve the public and lead South Carolina, a state that should be leading the Southeast in environmental sustainability and public service goods and needs. So I ask you to listen to all the citizens who spoke up about the negligence of this IRP and really listen to the public and make an informed decision here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson. We appreciate your testimony. Hold just a second and let me see if there are any questions for you. Parties? There are no questions. We appreciate your testimony and your time this morning. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Our next witness is Paul Black. Paul Black, are you in attendance? Thank you, sir. If we would have you join us down here at the table in front of the microphone. And if you would please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and your town, but not your complete address, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
Coltswood Drive, Elgin, South Carolina, and I am a Dominion customer.
Thank you, sir. And Paul Black is correct? Your name?
Yes.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Paul Black.
That's quite all right. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
All right. First, I want to thank this commission for holding this public testimony period. It's incredibly vital for folks to be able to have input in some way, shape, or form about their energy future. Speaking of energy future, that's why we're here today. I'm sure that it's not the first time y'all have heard today that folks have been paying up 18% more over the last year, thanks to the increase in Dominion's gas rates. And so first I want to speak about this from an economic lens. An 18% increase in any bill is crippling. If someone's mortgage were to go up 18%, sorry, just made this come out earlier. If someone's mortgage were to go up 18%, that wouldn't be acceptable. If someone's car payment were to go up 18%, would that be acceptable? But for a power bill, something that is not a luxury, a necessity in our lives to go up 18%, that is, ludicrous. And for Dominion to want to build another gas plant that would continue this reliance on methane gas and continue this cycle, that is ludicrous. So that's one of the reasons I'm here today, to speak out against this plan to double down on methane gas and continue this reliance that is crippling South Carolinians. I'm also here to speak about the kicking the can essentially on closing down the coal plant in Lower Richland. I'm not sure if many of y'all have family in Lower Richland, but I do. A whole bunch of family down there. And the fact that they're subjected to this coal plant is just unjust, and for Dominion to keep kicking the can. There's a reason all of my cousins have asthma down there. There's a reason that Lower Richland is seen just as an undesirable place to be. And that coal plant, with a bunch of other polluting industries, are key to that. And then, like, lastly, I just want to speak about the impact that, well, I don't need to speak about the impact to the climate. I'm sure a lot of other folks I've heard today, and the folks that were testifying were speaking about the impact of more fossil fuel being burnt. But the impact the impact that these plans, that this IRP has on our environment and our wallets and on the future of our children, is something that cannot be undercounted. Like, shoot, I wear a lot of hats, and one of those hats, I'm a realtor, and people are literally avoiding Dominion service territory. Like, people avoid HOAs, they avoid living in Dominion territory, they try to go to co-ops because of these crippling bills. So I ask, in summation, that the Public Service Commission consider rejecting this IRP, send them back to the drawing board, maybe trying to find some way to not kick the can with watery, replace it with solar and battery storage, possibly, and make it so that South Carolinians are no longer crippled by these increasing energy bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Questions? Mr. Black, thank you for taking the time and coming and testifying before us today. We appreciate your testimony and wish you a good day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Richard Moss, appearing virtually. Richard Moss. I'm sorry. I apologize. That witness no longer wishes to speak. Moving on to Elaine Cooper. Elaine Cooper, are you in attendance? Thank you, ma'am. If you would please take the seat at the front of the room in front of the microphone. If you would please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am. Will you please state your name, the name of your street, and your town, but not your house number, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
Elaine Cooper, Dallas Road, Columbia. Yes, I am a Dominion customer.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
Okay, we in South Carolina continue to pay some of the highest energy bills in the country. This resonates with me as a former resident from Illinois, actually Chicago. Now as a South Carolina resident for about 45 years, that really impressed me, that we pay, our energy bills are higher than Chicago. Still, why is that? In Chicago, you can see many solar panels backed up by solar storage across Chicago. Homes, apartments, businesses, and places of worship. Why can't we do the same? Why haven't we already in 2023? Meanwhile, natural gas prices are notoriously volatile, and Dominion has already raised customer bills by nearly 18% since May 2022 to pay for natural gas burned in its power plants. 18% raises have crippled retired citizens on fixed incomes such as myself. And they've crippled our young new homeowners who can pay back their student debt and pay the 18% bills that may still rise higher. To avoid more bill hikes and create an affordable clean energy future, we need to invest in fuel-free energy sources like solar energy and energy efficiency. Investing in gas infrastructure could lock us into a high cost, high carbon for decades, harding the transition to cleaner energy options and impending progress towards carbon neutrality. We should not miss an opportunity for our state to drive technological advancements and foster job creation in the rapidly growing renewable energy sector. And to build a methane gas plant, you are going to need pipelines. I've attended the PSC hearing on the possible use of eminent domain to allow utilities to build pipelines throughout rural South Carolina onto farms, land that have been held by South Carolina citizens for many generations. I hope and pray that the Public Service Commission considers the health of our rural communities. Pipelines have a legacy of leaking. And then please consider the Public Service Commission's mission to help the public and provide the best solutions to a better present leading into the future for South Carolina energy customers. And lastly, so the registration link to speak in public serves as a barrier and deterrent for the public to speak. By the time that the public gets the word, the deadline to sign up in person has passed. Many South Carolina ratepayers who want to speak in person rather than send an impersonal email cannot because the deadline has passed and they finally have gotten the word or maybe not. Consider announcing the public meetings and encourage all ratepayers to attend. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Hold just a second. Let me see if there are any questions for you. Questions for this witness? Ms. Cooper, thank you for taking your time and coming and presenting your testimony today. We appreciate you being here and hope you have a good day.
Our next witness is Robert Reese. Robert Reese, are you in attendance? Thank you, sir. Could have you take a seat at this table in front of the microphone, please. And if you would please raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Will you please state your name, the name of your street and town, but not your house number, and whether or not you are a Dominion Energy South Carolina customer?
My name is Robert Reese. I live on Sonoma Drive in Hopkins, South Carolina, and I am a Dominion ratepayer.
Thank you, sir. You'll have 3 minutes for your testimony. You may begin your testimony now.
I thank this commission for holding this public hearing, and I rise to ask that you reject the IRP. And I do so for specific reasons, and mainly for the lack of inclusion or consideration of the low-income minority and rural communities where these companies now reside. The Dominion Water Replant is contiguous to my maternal homeland. For 100 years, my family has owned land that is directly neighboring the Dominion Water Replant. And our nation's environmental and civil rights laws require that we make every effort to prevent pollution, to address climate change and its effects, and to work to clean up legacy pollution that is harming human health and the environment, specifically in communities like mine that house the Dominion Power Plant in Watery, South Carolina. My family and my neighbors in the Lower Richland community are really tired that our tax dollars are being used as subsidies and to the corporate research, development, and ultimately the potential construction of new energy plants that have caused our community harm and where these communities currently reside. My neighbors don't have the opportunities to come out and share. And there was a question earlier to the young lady, what do we do now if we do reject? I've heard so many potential opportunities to come to the table to find other alternative opportunities to address the energy issues. Our communities want to participate in the process. They want to be a part of the discussion. They want to have an opportunity to share with Dominion what we think would work and how we would be great corporate or great community partners. We just don't have the opportunities. We haven't been brought to the table. We haven't been asked what we think. We haven't been given consideration to give our opinions about what is next in line. And we just ask for that opportunity. We've had this plant in our community for X amount of years. I don't want to say that it's not been a good corporate partner. It's just not been a partner. And this is an opportunity for us to slow down, to look at what's been done in other areas, to look at what the future needs are and find ways to address this, because we understand that communities like ours will be the next location for the next power plants. And we want to be able to at least have a voice for those future neighbors of the next plants that are being put into position so that they can have an opportunity to get some feedback from what we have experienced in the time that Dominion has been a neighbor of ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. Hold just a moment. Any questions for this witness party? Commissioners? Commissioner Justin Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, sir, for coming to testify. I would imagine that at some point in the hearing that there are going to be questions about what, if any, stakeholder engagement took place during this process. And hearing your testimony, you've said several times that your community has not been included and you feel as if Dominion has not been a partner. Could you be a little bit more specific in terms of what community particularly, or how exactly you and your community would like to be included or would have liked to be included?
So I grew up in the Lower Richland community, and as I mentioned, my homestead, my maternal homestead, is contiguous to the property. We've not been included in any of the discussions, or I haven't received any notifications. And I also lead an environmental justice organization in the Lower Richland community. So our community, because we are a fence line community, it's not just Dominion. There are other plants that are in our community. So we have begun a community organization that really is there to address environmental concerns and working in collaboration with other entities, the Lower Richland NAACP and other entities. So we have the mechanism to come to the table and to be a part of the discussion. We just haven't been asked.
I understand, sir. And so I know sometimes when we get public witnesses, the commission role and what we do here is understood. But just to further that understanding, what I'm seeking from you is some of what you just told me. So you said Lower Richland, and that's information. Lower Richland NAACP. So this is going to help me.
We have been working in concert with DHEC, and specifically there is Keisha Long, who is a part of the Environmental Justice Initiative through them. We've been a part of the EJ Strong Environmental Justice Group. We've been working for the last 3 years to really strengthen the environmental justice knowledge of the community in Lower Richland. I also am a grant writer for the town of Eastover. So Eastover is directly contiguous to the Watery plant. So there are a lot of opportunities. There's a Watery Baptist Association, which is a conglomeration of about 18 Baptist churches in the community that gives an opportunity for you to get this information out through the religious communities. There are a number of mechanisms by which you can get the information out to get it to the community so that you can galvanize the community to lend its support. We're not in opposition of Dominion. We just want to be at the table when some of these things are decided.
I don't disagree. You were speaking faster than I can write. So I'm going to slow you down a little bit and understand the folks sitting on this dais, we can't do the things that you're suggesting. The parties would have to do it in the appropriate manner. So I'm just going to start from the top. So Lower Richland NAACP. You said you have an environmental justice organization. What's the name of it?
It's not a named organization, but through DHEC, we have been working to look at communities like the Rosemont community in Charleston. So they've been giving us an opportunity to sort of learn from their experience. So we've been having an environmental justice academy. It's a 9-month academy. We're probably on the 5th month now, where just a group of community members come together on the last Saturday of each month to really learn about environmental justice issues as it relates to our community and how we can be better advocates. So it would probably, if you're looking at an entity to find out more, it would be DHEC, and Keisha Long would be the person from DHEC who's been helping to galvanize our community.
So if Dominion were looking for it, they would have to go through DHEC.
Actually, I just sat at a meeting with Dominion maybe last week or the week before, where the plant manager out at that facility was giving information about these new rules that are coming down from I think it's EPA. And so they know very clearly how to connect with the community, and they've done so in the last couple of weeks. We just haven't had a chance to be a part of this discussion.
Okay. And that was at the EJ Academy?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you mentioned a Baptist church organization?
There's the Watery Baptist Association. Watery is synonymous with the area where the Dominion plant resides. The Baptist Association is a conglomeration of about 18 Baptist churches. It's not the only faith-based community that you would want to sort of contact, but it is a faith-based community that has an organized structure and about 18 entities, so that you get a chance to talk to a large segment of the religious population at the same time, one fell swoop. And for us in this community where communication is often a real issue, having that opportunity to disseminate information through the churches is one of the main channels of getting information out to the communities.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So Lower Richland NAACP, the EJ Academy through DHEC, as led by, I think, Ms. Keisha Long, the Watery Baptist Association, 18 Baptist churches. Who else?
And I guess my only other thing would probably be the municipality. The only municipality in the area would be the town of Eastover. And as I mentioned, I worked closely with the town of Eastover. I was their grant writer until recently. There's a new mayor that's elected. There's always an opportunity and an interest to connect with not only the Dominion plant, but the other large industrial organizations that are in that community.
Understood. And as a representative of your community and the organizations, maybe not directly, but indirectly, the organizations you mentioned, it's your testimony that you and those organizations don't feel as if they've been included in discussions about the IRP
I think by the sheer
that's
fact
been submitted to us.
I think by the sheer fact that there's nobody from those communities here, it's not that we're not wanting to be advocates for what happens in our community. We just don't know.
And do you know if anyone from Dominion attempted to reach out to those organizations at any point in time?
I have no way to know that.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Madam Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Carol Lee Williams.
Thank you, Chair Belser. And my questions were very similar, so I've got a short and sweet one, and that is, how did you find out about the meeting today?
It was something that was sent by Keisha Long, who was with the DHEC organization. And because I'm the person that sits on that body from the community, I probably was the only person from the community that got that email.
Thank you. I do appreciate your being here.
Sure.
Mr. Reese, thank you for your presence today, the time you've given to be here, and for your testimony. We appreciate
certainly
it.
thank you.
Hope you have a good day. I'm sorry, Commissioner Caston, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I was just going to mention, and you may or may not know this, that there is, Dominion does have a stakeholder advisory group. And I'm not, I don't know all the details of it, but I know there's some folks from Dominion here today, and they could probably provide you information relative to that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for coming.
I appreciate it.
Again, thank you, Mr. Reese. Have a good day.
Madam Chair, that concludes our attendees and signups for the morning session.
I just wanted to, did Mr. Grant ever come in? He had indicated in person, and I just want to make sure he was, oh, okay.
Bob Grant?
Yes.
Bob Grant, are you in attendance, and do you wish to speak?
Okay. Just wanted to check.
No, ma'am, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bachman. We will close this portion with the public customer hearing. Parties, it's close to 12. We have another public customer session starting at, I think it's 5:30 this afternoon. I would propose that we break until 1:05. Wait a minute, that clock is never right. Yeah, 1:05 today, in which case we will begin with presentation of witnesses. But before we do that, are there any preliminary matters that I need to address before we start with presentation of testimony today? Has anybody got any kind of preliminary matter we need to talk about? Okay. So we'll come back at 1:05, start with the presentation of testimony, and we'll run to about 4:30 or so and have a short break before the 5:30 evening session tonight, and then we'll be back in the morning. Okay. Thank you.